Relationships are not simply about love or companionship. They are deeply embedded in the psychology of power, validation, and emotional attachment. When a woman walks away, especially after causing pain, many men make the mistake of assuming that she is gone for good. But then something strange happens. She comes back. She reaches out, subtly at first, sometimes after months, sometimes even years. And the question that lingers in your mind is, why? You must first understand human nature, particularly how women process relationships differently than men. Women, biologically and psychologically, are more attuned to social and emotional connections. Their survival, historically speaking, depended on their ability to navigate relationships effectively. This means that even when they leave, they rarely sever all emotional ties immediately. Unlike men who can compartmentalize pain and move forward in a more linear fashion, women operate in cycles. Their emotions are fluid, and so are their decisions. A woman does not necessarily come back because she regrets what she did. She may not even be consciously aware of the real reason herself. More often than not, she returns to confirm something. Does she still have power over you? Can she still access the same emotional response from you that she once did? Because fundamentally, people crave validation. We want to know that we mattered, that we had an impact. And for a woman, returning to a man she once hurt is often a way of reaffirming that she still holds significance in his life. But here's where most men fail. They misinterpret this return as love, as redemption, as a second chance. And in doing so, they fall right back into the emotional loop they were just starting to escape. A woman may reach out, seemingly remorseful, nostalgic about the past, reminiscing about the good times. She may test the waters, sending a simple message, checking in as if nothing happened. But what she is really doing is measuring your reaction. Have you moved on? Are you still hurt? Are you still waiting? Because if you are, she has regained control. This is not to say that women do this with malicious intent. It is often subconscious, driven by an internal conflict between loss and security. Women seek emotional closure just as much as men do, but the difference is that their sense of closure is often found in knowing they could still return if they wanted to. This is why exes circle back even when they've moved on, even when they are in new relationships. It is not about rekindling what was lost, it is about ensuring that the door remains open. But there is a second layer to this, and that is the fear of true loss. Women often believe they can walk away and still maintain access to the past. They assume that the emotional connection will always be there, that the man they left behind will always be an option. But when they begin to sense that this is no longer the case, that he is no longer emotionally invested, that he has truly moved forward, panic sets in. This is when the return is not just about power, but about genuine fear. Because in that moment, she realizes she miscalculated. She thought she could come back at any time, but now the man she left is no longer available. Women do not come back because they miss you. They come back because they miss the security of knowing you were always there. The moment you remove that security, the game changes. And this is where self-mastery becomes essential. If you allow your emotions to be dictated by external validation, if you seek closure from the person who caused the pain, you will always be vulnerable to this cycle. But if you understand this psychological pattern and remain grounded in your own value, you become the one who dictates the terms. The answer to why women come back after hurting you is not about them, it is about you. The way you handle yourself, the way you move forward, the way you rise above the need for external validation determines everything. When you truly understand this, you no longer wait for the return. You no longer seek answers from someone who already gave you one through their actions. You simply move forward, and in doing so, you become the man who no longer needs to ask why. Human relationships are rarely as simple as we wish them to be. They are not built purely on love, loyalty, or even mutual respect. They are deeply embedded in an unspoken psychological game of validation and power. This is not to say that every interaction between two people is manipulative or transactional, but rather that human nature, by design, compels us to seek affirmation of our worth through others. And nowhere is this dynamic more evident than in the way people navigate breakups and emotional connections. At the core of human nature is the desire to be seen, acknowledged, and valued. From an evolutionary perspective, social validation was crucial to survival. If you were accepted by the group, you lived. If you were cast out, you faced the brutal reality of isolation, which in ancestral times often meant death. Even in today's modern world, where survival no longer depends on tribal belonging, the need for social affirmation remains deeply ingrained in our psychology. We seek reassurance that we are important, that we matter, that our presence leaves an imprint on others. This is where power dynamics come into play. In any relationship, romantic or otherwise, there exists an invisible struggle for influence. Who cares more? Who holds the upper hand? Who is willing to walk away, and who is left waiting? The answers to these questions dictate the entire emotional experience of the relationship. When someone walks away, particularly after inflicting pain, they are often testing the strength of their own influence. The ability to leave and still hold power over the other person is, in many ways, the ultimate validation. This is why people often return after causing hurt, not because they have had a sudden revelation about their mistakes, but because they are subconsciously seeking confirmation that they still matter. They want to know, am I still in your mind? Do I still have access to your emotions? Can I still affect you the way I once did? If the answer is yes, they have reinforced their sense of significance. Influence is fading. This is not a deliberate act of cruelty or manipulation. It is an instinctive response to the uncertainty of human connection. We all fear irrelevance. We all want to believe that we left an impact, that we are not so easily forgotten. This is why people reappear after months, even years, not with a grand gesture of reconciliation, but with something as simple as a message, a check-in, or a casual remark. It is not about rekindling the relationship. It is about confirming that they still exist in your world. If you do not understand this psychological mechanism, you may mistake it for something deeper. You may believe that their return is fueled by remorse, love, or an awakening of emotions. In reality, it is often nothing more than a reflexive attempt to secure their own self-worth. The moment you validate their return with attention, emotion, or longing, you reinforce the very power they sought to confirm. You allow yourself to be pulled back into a cycle where you are not in control. Understanding this truth does not mean becoming bitter or resentful. It means recognizing the nature of human interactions for what they are. It means detaching yourself from the need for external validation and focusing on your own self-worth. The person who holds the most power in any dynamic is not the one who chases, but the one who remains unfazed. The one who does not need validation because he has already found it within himself. When you grasp this, you no longer feel confused when someone re-enters your life after leaving you in pain. You no longer interpret their return as a reflection of your worth. Instead, you see it for what it truly is. A moment of insecurity on their part, a subconscious test of influence. And when you recognize that, you gain something far more valuable than their attention. You gain the power to decide whether their presence still holds any significance in your life at all. Emotional attachment is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. It binds people together in ways that logic cannot fully explain, often making them act against their own self-interest. When someone has been emotionally invested in another person, that attachment does not simply disappear when the relationship ends. It lingers, influencing thoughts, emotions, and behaviors long after physical separation has occurred. This is why people struggle to let go, why they find themselves revisiting old memories, and why they sometimes return to relationships they once walked away from. At the heart of emotional attachment is the human need for connection. From the moment we are born, we seek comfort, security, and validation from others. In childhood, this attachment is directed toward caregivers who provide the emotional foundation for our sense of self. As we grow, that same need for attachment extends into friendships and romantic relationships. When we invest in another person, when we share experiences, emotions, and vulnerabilities, our sense of identity becomes intertwined with theirs. This is why breakups feel so painful. It is not just the loss of a person, it is the loss of a part of ourselves. But there is an even deeper layer to this, the fear of true loss. When someone leaves a relationship, they may convince themselves that they are in control of the situation.